next speaker is Brodie McCulloch from Spacecubed in Perth, Co-working for Change. I like that co is starting to come into our discussions here, cooperatives, co-working, collaboration, and hopefully less of the competition word that creates so many problems in the social enterprise sector. And also, obviously, competition has its positive sides, but the idea of people working together is very positive and encouraging. And Brodie McCulloch is the Managing Director of Social Innovation in Western Australia, which is an organisation set up to co-create West Australia's social infrastructure. Through Social Innovation Western Australia, he founded Spacecubed, which is a network of co-working spaces in Perth operating as a social enterprise. Brodie is interested in working across sectors to build platforms that facilitate change. Spacecubed is designed to support a community of entrepreneurs and change makers from a range of backgrounds and experiences. Brodie is also currently a director of Bendigo Bank in Fremantle, which is one of Australia's largest network of social enterprises. And in early 2014, he will be travelling through a Churchill Fellowship to explore international models for scaling social impact without using government funds. So there's a scaling social impact without using government funds. Brodie also told me that in his one of his past careers, he worked in a marketing role on a cruise liner. So the mind boggles as to what that job would entail, but welcome to Byron Bay, Brodie.
Yes, thank you, and thanks for organising all this, Sasha. And it's a really good opportunity because I actually haven't talked much at conferences in the last sort of year and a half because we've been so busy setting this up, because it is a business, a small business, which needs to be run. So it's good to be able to run through the last couple of years and how it's developed, some of the lessons learned, and where we think it's sort of going from here. Also, it was good that they didn't mention that it was schoolies, but also coincides with Movember. So I just look really dodgy in Byron Bay. But so I'll talk a bit about, basically I moved back to Perth from overseas about 4 years ago and was looking at how do we support entrepreneurs. I wanted to start up a small business, and going through that process, there wasn't a lot of support for entrepreneurs, or especially if you were looking at setting up a social business of some sort. There's small business centres and a lot of government support, and I think that was the overriding characteristic, was people thought it was already being done. There was the Innovation Centre, there's government small business centres, there's WACOS and organisations that you would think would be supporting that entrepreneurs, but normally that's sort of more traditional models. So we looked at, over the next sort of 30 years, in Western Australia there'll be $250 billion of resources investment, which is a lot of money. But what we weren't looking at is how do we support the people who are coming up with ideas to tackle those big problems around the environment, water, food, big energy, big issues that need big ideas to solve them. So one of the first things we looked at was, right, if these people aren't getting support, how can we support them now? And that's where we came up with the model for Spacecubed. So what's co-working? So co-working globally is expanding really quickly, and it backs off a number of sort of mega trends around, now you can pretty much work from anywhere. So knowledge workers can work anywhere. People, and as Gen Y goes through the workforce, they want that flexibility to be able to work anywhere. So really, it's that merging of baby boomers exiting the workforce, new technologies coming online which allow you to be productive wherever you are. But at the same time, having a lot of you would have worked from home, and after about 2 days, you end up just going to the fridge and watching TV. So what this allows you to do is keep focused. You can go into a space, meet other people, get that social interaction, which everyone is used to from workplaces, but also access different people, different ideas, new ways of doing things. So it builds around collaborative consumption, which a lot of you might have seen. So looking at this sort of product service. So now a lot of people don't need their own office, but they need access to an office, or access to meeting rooms, or access to high-speed internet. So that's what this really builds off, is people paying a membership to be able to access those services. So this is our space now, but I'll go through the journey we went on. So we opened Spacecubed in March last year. So it's been open for about 20 months. It's a 550, the first one was a 550 square metre co-working space. And the deal we did was with Stockland, so a big property management group, where they were looking at doing a good corporate social responsibility thing in Western Australia. And we said, well, instead of supporting one big not-for-profit, through a space like this, you can support hundreds. So our model is a third social and environmental startups, a third technology and creative industries, and a third government, corporate, and bigger not-for-profit innovation projects, all co-located in the one space. So we went through a design process where we got people in. So it's actually the old Reserve Bank in Perth, so middle of the city on St George's Terrace. Great location, but the space hadn't been used for about 10 years since the bank moved out. That's Perth Lord Mayor coming in and being good. So the city, basically we opened the space. The deal with Stockland was they'd stagger up the rent for us over 2 years, and we would build out the space and find the money to fit it out. So they got it back to this sort of condition. We opened the space with 4 white IKEA desks in the middle like this, and then the idea was build it out over 8 months with the people who are going to be using it, because they'll know best what they need rather than us sort of making it up. And if we'd actually gone with the original plan for what it was going to be, we'd be moved out by now because the business model wouldn't have stacked up. This was our internet when we first opened, a Wi-Fi hotspot on some stools. Then we started getting things in, so City of Perth came on board once the doors were open. So once we'd signed the lease, they came on board because they were like, we want to support entrepreneurs, which is great, and paid for some fit out. So we used about 60% recycled material. Then built out the space pretty quickly. So November last year, pretty much everything was done. The things we try, so how it works is people pay a monthly membership fee where they get access to sort of 8 hours of hot desk time, discount off meeting rooms, access to where we have an online network so people can post up, hey, I'm working on this, can anyone help me with this? Does anyone have any ideas about this? So they don't have to, we don't have to be in the space in order to get access to those people. Then people are able to get more time as they need it. So they can get 2 days a week, 5 days a week, or their own permanent desk area. Plus we have event space and things like that. We do have, on the collaboration side, because one of the things internationally is if you open these spaces, there's a good chance that what you'll end up attracting is people of roughly the same age that have the same worldview and like sort of hanging out together, which isn't really the outcome we wanted. We wanted to really drive collaboration and innovation between different and diverse groups of people. So to do that, we have sort of soft networking events. So we have breakfast, lunches, things like that to just get people talking. Then we have sort of next level events like meetup groups. So the good thing is there was already a lot of stuff happening in Perth, but this is sort of just giving it a home to happen. So iPhone developer groups, people working on conscious capitalism sort of stuff, all those sort of things. So those meetup groups bring those sort of interest groups together. And then we've got events like this. So this was actually last weekend, this was last Saturday, and it's called Rails Girls, which is, Rails is a development language, sort of like HTML or that sort of thing. So there's big problems with the amount of girls taking up computer science and engineering in Australia. So this is designed to be a quick access point for them in one day to learn a coding language so that they could develop their own app sort of by the end of the day. And they had I think 60 people register for it. And yeah, they had about 50 turn up, which is massive because the normal sort of hackathon type events are 90% men and then maybe 10 women. So this is a really good way to get people involved. Some of the other events like that we have is Social Startup 48. Again, all of these are run by other people who are really interested in this area. All we do is sort of enable that to happen. Social Startup 48, which is around social enterprise, so build a social enterprise in 54 hours. Startup weekend, which is on the Friday night, you have 100 people come in, 30 designers, 30 developers, 40 people with ideas. They pitch their ideas on the Friday night, form teams, so choose the idea they want to work on, usually about 15 ideas, and then build the product by the Sunday and pitch it to venture capitalists. So really rapid prototyping of ideas. So, and it gets people interacting. The great outcome from that is more that people meet other people with different skill sets, which then maybe that idea won't get off the ground, but the next one will. This is the old bank vault. So this is where a bulk of Perth's gold was kept for a long time. Now we use it as a pretty awesome meeting room, and advertising agencies use it and all sorts of stuff. We also have the sort of the next level, so School for Social Entrepreneurs starts beginning of next year. Founder Institute, which is like the same sort of thing, so Accelerator program, but for technology companies. And we've just opened our new space at 131 St George's Terrace, so this is sort of the new, it's in front of the BHP building. So this space was quite different to the first one, where it's a partnership with a furniture design company, where basically they're a big multinational furniture company. They said to us, look, we make this awesome collaborative furniture. You build these collaborative communities. Can we do something with that? So we opened a space with them right in the middle of the city where we use their furniture. They sort of just sit back. There's only 2 of them working for them in Perth. And we've activated that space. So that space within 2 months is full, which is pretty awesome. Again, with a range of different companies. So this is the new space here. So you can find out more about that at spacecubed.com, but what I'll talk a bit about now is the business model and how it stacks up, because we didn't actually get any ongoing government funding. We got a bit of money from Lottery West because we support a third social and environmental organisations, so they supported a third of the fit out of the first space. And we also got a little bit of money from City of Perth. But other than that, it's all relied on building revenue through developing those different products, which is membership, co-working space, permanent desks, events, and then sort of we have some bigger corporate organisational members. So the number of not-for-profits, Anglicare WA is an organisational member, so their staff can access the space, Brightwater Care. So this is the best thing Social Trader's done. I think they've done some good stuff, but this is the best. Because this allowed me to explain really quickly how our business model stacks up. So we've talked a bit about sort of employment, but really Spacecubed, we think, fits these 2 areas. So the way it works is Social Innovation in WA is a company limited by guarantee, so not-for-profit company. At the moment, Spacecubed exists, so trademarks and everything are within Social Innovation in WA, so it's within that not-for-profit model. And basically, we look at it from the point of view, it's an income generator, so it makes money, so we can do the other work we want to do. And also service delivery. Creating that enabling environment for people to get their ideas off the ground is really important. And through that, we have a pretty massive social impact. So we do, one of our members is petrescue.com.au, which is actually the largest traffic charity website in Australia, bigger than Oxfam, bigger than anything else. And this is probably a good way to look at how the model stacks up. So, or a potential new model as well. So you have, what we're looking at now is, with our board, is what we do with Spacecubed, whether it stays within that company limited by guarantee, or whether we can look at social franchise models, because we think a network of these sort of spaces will be of value in the near future. Or do we spin it out into a proprietary limited company, which has 100% of the shares owned by the not-for-profit? So then we can do things like raise capital, access investors, things like that, which at the moment is pretty difficult to raise. It's already been mentioned, getting capital for not-for-profits is hard work. So this model from Street, which is basically a coffee cart, coffee shop, social enterprise in Melbourne, and they have a number of locations. But what they recently did was set up Street Enterprise Limited, which is a proprietary limited company, and then took investment so that they could grow their business. So this is sort of the model we're looking at the moment, where you have your not-for-profit, which is sort of the benevolent, does all the good work, but then that IP can be put into a different structure, but still most of the benefit will come back to the not-for-profit organisation. So there's lots of interesting things like that which we're exploring right now. I should mention also there's regional co-working spaces popping up all over Australia. This one's in Geraldton, where they run a number of programs. What they did, which was interesting, was opened a pop-up space to test the market in Geraldton. So Geraldton's north, quite 4 hours north of Perth. And they opened a pop-up space to see, is there actually demand for something like this? And over the last 12 months, they said, yes, there is demand. And now they've opened a bigger space on the main strip in Geraldton. So similar sort of model. Their focus is really sort of more social enterprise. The reason we have a mix is because our business model wouldn't stack up if we just had not-for-profits and social enterprises. We need those technology companies. We need the bigger organisations using it, that they themselves might not have the social focus, but it drives revenue for us to be able to do the things we want to do. I should also mention where did I put the thing? There's a co-working space around here that's open. So they just gave me a Cotopia, and it's in Lennox. So talk with Kiki, if she's here, put up her hand. Yeah, there, cool, good. So Cotopia, cotopia.com.au, so a bit of a plug, but this model of working, I think, is going to grow really quickly. So outcomes and growth. So what have we achieved? It's been a really short amount of time, and I don't think this is the model to look at as normal patterns of growth, because our board struggles at the moment with the amount of growth we've had. They all come from larger organisations like HBF, so insurance providers, bigger theatre companies, bigger organisations that have big budgets. We started with a budget of 0. I put in some of my own money, and then built it on revenue from there. So we've now got 400 members, which is pretty massive within such a short amount of time. Our revenue in the last 12 months grew by 500%, which is crazy, and I sent that through to our board, and they were like, that's okay, how do we manage this growth? So right now, managing the growth is actually the hard part, to make sure, a lot of businesses fail through rapid growth rather than anything else. One of the key indicators we had was, will any of our members be able to access investment through Spacecubed? So through the connections they make, through the networks they build, through the programs we run. And we've just had our first member who does a pretty cool sort of geolocation application he's just about to receive quite a significant amount of investment, which is great. So he started about 9 months ago in the space, went through that Founder Institute program, then we have a scholarship where we have 5 scholarships every 3 months, 1 creative industries, 2 technology, 1 social and 1 environmental. And he got one of the technology ones, went through that. Then he basically accessed our mentoring program, so all of our members can put up 2 hours a month of mentoring. So accessed the mentoring program, got introduced to one sort of, not really a venture company, but more a traditional stockbroking firm, who then connected him with investors who were keen, and now it looks like he'll get his first quite big round of investment, which 12 months ago I don't think would have happened. Some of the key things that this really builds on is peer-to-peer. So we often get asked the question, how is this different to a small business centre, or how is this different to what's already available out there? And the key thing is that it's all peer-to-peer. So the best person to learn from when starting up a business or starting up a not-for-profit or a social enterprise is someone who's been through it recently and has those fresh lessons learned. All the accounting and legal stuff you can get access to, especially now with the internet. And also we have a lot of lawyers that use the space. We've got 2 barristers, which is interesting. It's probably a lot cheaper than the chambers that they usually use. But we've seen this massive growth. So this was a report the City of Perth just released, which is around the Perth technology startup ecosystem. We want to do one for the social, but it's still a bit immature just yet. And basically, within the last 2 years, Spacecubed's really become the hub of where, so you've got the Startup Weekend, Founder Institute. So most of that stuff happens in Spacecubed. A lot of the meetup groups do as well. So City of Perth was sort of identifying, if this goes down, then we lose all of this, which is a good incentive. They won't give us any more money, but that's okay, because we operate as a business, so it doesn't actually matter. Trends and next. So I think the way to look at it, and what Mark was talking about earlier, is this thinking of, don't think of it as programs. We think of Spacecubed as a platform. We don't offer direct assistance to people, but they can get access to it through our space. So it's scalable, which is really important. Rethinking public assets. So that space had been empty for 10 years. The second space was pretty newly renovated, but we're looking at how could this work within libraries or near libraries? How could it work in other locations where there's already the infrastructure, and with all the big changes that are coming, there's sort of no time to change the infrastructure side of things. We just need to sort of retrofit it. Social procurement, which was spoken about this morning, I think we'll get more of a mention today, but purchasing from organisations that are located in these spaces. So we've had the City of Perth starting to use the application developers that are inside Spacecubed, so that creates economy and markets for them. And I guess the thing we've just done recently is an opportunity came up where the whole of the building we're in has become available, the 45 St George's Terrace location, so the first space. Wally Parsons, so the mining investment boom is over, so all the engineering firms are downsizing everything basically, and the whole of our building became available, so it's 6,000 square metres. So at the moment between the 2 spaces we've got 800, so 6,000 is a big jump up. But one of our goals is around thought leadership and sort of provoking, what is actually possible. So we put into the market, and you can get it off our website, a prospectus for, what could we do if we had this whole building sort of thing. So we put that out to the market. We've actually had 900 square metres already committed, which is great. So that sort of already doubles the size of the space we already have. We've had interest from Google and LinkedIn, so bigger organisations where if they can co-locate in this one building, it'd be really interesting to see what happens. Also, they're building a coffee shop out the front, so that helps. And this really focuses on where we think it's going next, and that's building a network of these spaces across the Perth region and also regional, where people can actually work from anywhere. So I've pitched this through to, I was with basically all of the asset managers or commercial managers for the different state government agencies, and pitched, if you did this, they're looking at decentralising all the corporate headquarters for each government agency out to suburbs, and they've done it with one, and they had 50% staff turnover within 12 months or something crazy. So now looking at different models is if we build a network of spaces, so anyone who works for any agency that lives in Fremantle can then work locally, where that has massive social implications, where they can pick up their kids. It has big implications for the environment because they're not driving or commuting, and they get connection to different agencies, so build that collaboration. Plus the public, we threw in, have it open to the public as well, so anyone could use it. And the question that came back from, I think it was Director General of Transport or something was, but if I can't see my staff, how do I know they're working? And so there's still a long way to go. There's big cultural shifts that need to take place over the next 10 years. I guess there's a few factors that will impact that around, baby boomers retiring, new leadership emerging, that sort of thing, where people will want to work from anywhere. But I think this is sort of where it's heading. Plus connecting it internationally. So for us in Western Australia, looking at Asia, looking at China, India, Africa, all of our neighbours are right there. But besides exporting, resources, we don't do that much else. So that's where we think it's going. Feel free to ask me any questions or anything, and I'll just leave you with this is on the entrance of Spacecubed, which I think is really why we built it, and it sets the tone when people enter, that there are massive challenges coming, and doing things now, and we wanted to look at what can we do now that will provide a platform to have some effect over that, and I think we're having that already, which is great, so we'll see. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Daimani from Byron Youth Service. Love what you're doing. Great presentation. I'm interested in what social issues are being tackled within the space.
Yeah.
And also just a little bit more info about, obviously it's a pretty younger crew who are involved. How you sort of, I guess, what sort of ages and how you're integrating perhaps some of the more experienced people in the community to share as well in that space with younger people.
So some of the social issues. So we don't actually ourselves really tackle any of those social issues. It's more through this space we're able to really lower the barrier for other people to set up their enterprises. So we have mental health organisations, so Zero to Hero, which is suicide awareness. Who else have we got? There's a range of organisations that are doing that, but really we see our role as taking what's a big burden, which is having property, having to manage leases, having to manage IT infrastructure, all that sort of stuff, off them so they can focus on core business. So that's really where we see our role as able to enable them. Older people, it's a question we get a bit, but we do have, our age range goes from sort of high school students all the way through to seniors who are, to people who have actually, we've had a lot of interest from ex-company directors who they go from being, director at BHP or something like that to, Bob at, in Joondalup with the email address bob@gmail.com and that sort of thing. So this really allows them to get back into it, provide mentoring services, get involved with interesting projects and provide their, a lot of experience into fields that, they've had a lot of experience in. So that's how we sort of see it work.
There's a gentleman up here, We'll just give you a microphone, sir.
Hi, I'm Francis from Rethinking Disability Service in the Northern Rivers, and it struck me, we've just moved into a disused Commonwealth Bank in Lismore with a vault, and we've got a lot of exciting ideas for it involving young local people. But it seems like this project is offering a lot of opportunities for social renewal. I was just thinking on terms of the financial institution, there are a lot of marble vaulted institutions in country towns now that have full lease signs on them, and a lot of young people with nothing to do. And yeah, just thinking on a bigger picture scale, have you been? I saw a documentary on Detroit and the state of urban decay in Detroit. Have you been approached by mayors from places where the big money has departed and communities are left to fend for themselves in terms of urban renewal?
We've been approached by a lot of local governments, so a lot of the interest has come from local governments. State government, not as much, but they're going into a period of, they've actually, all the things that they thought, we didn't have a lot of cooperation from the state government originally because they thought they were doing all of this already. But local government, and now they've actually shut down all of the stuff they were doing, so that happens. But I think with the urban renewal side of it, it's really interesting. So Fremantle at the moment is a good example where everything is sort of like there's for lease signs everywhere, which is really sad because it's an amazing place. But what they've actually done is Maya moved out of and this wasn't our project, it was another project, but we're looking at putting in co-working space in the building. So Maya had a massive building in the middle of the city and they actually left Fremantle about 12 months ago. So you just had this massive empty building there. The new developers need a major tenant before they'll develop it. So what they've actually done is set up the ground floor as pop-up retail, but really well curated pop-up retail. Second floor is a production studio as well. So there's people actually making things, lots of artists, lots of creatives using that. We're looking at a floor as a co-working space. So each floor is 4,000 square metres, so it's a massive building, it's huge. But they've got the rooftop bar on the top. So I think that project, you can check it out, they've just renamed it again, but go to MYER or MEYR, different combinations of Maya they've tried with the name and keep getting sued, I think, so. Because they didn't want to have to change the signage, but anyway. Check that out because I think that's going to be a really good case study. The idea of incubating smaller businesses through there and creative industries, as well as skilling them up with the tool, with the business nows, so that they can then occupy other spaces around the city and actually lease them commercially. So, it's very interesting. We've spoken with a lot of local governments. So.
Brodie, I've actually got a question for you. We've had various co-working sites in Byron Bay, and we recently had one in the industrial estate that was set up with a lot of enthusiasm, and it was a good space, and yet it closed down. I'm really happy to hear we've now got one happening in Lennox, but I'm just interested, what are your tips around why your one sounds like it's working and you've got energy behind it? What do you feel is the difference or the key things that we really need to know about if we're going to make these sorts of spaces work? Because it's obviously hot desks and the whole thing are such a modern, growing concept. So I think the focus, we spent about 12 months beforehand really focusing on building, testing to see if there was interest, so building the community of people that would be using it. So we sort of knew that there was the demand there before we even opened. The thing I regret not doing was actually getting people to sign up for membership before we opened. So sort of we opened day one and it's like, oh no, we've got 2 members, what do we do now? But we've got a massive engaged audience of people who really want this to happen. So that's probably a tip is, start to test, and you can do it with crowdfunding now as well. So you could put up, we're going to open a co-working space here. Here's the different award levels. So Hub did this for their space in Sydney. And then test the market in a very cheap and cost-effective way before you actually open the space. So you know what the demand is before you do it. And it's really that, I think each one will be different. So even the 2 spaces we've got, which are 500 metres away from each other, have developed different cultures and different focuses already. So accepting that that's how it's going to work, but then providing the opportunities for whatever that is to emerge, rather forcing a specific structure onto it. So that's probably the 2 things. Developing the community. Space is one thing, but it's that if you don't have that strong community of people who are passionate about it and using it, that's the main thing, customers, they're putting dollars on the table, then it's not so good. Great, thank you. Thank you, Brodie.
No worries, thanks.